Dr. Sanjay Baru, a former media advisor of former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. He is now a distinguished fellow at the United Service Institution in New Delhi and a member of the management board of Cuts International Washington, D.C. Center. So to come to you, Dr. Sanjay Baru, if you can give us an understanding of the importance of the Indo-Pacific. Why are we talking of the Indo-Pacific? What is the interaction between the geoeconomics of this region and the strategic importance of it? So give us a sense of what's going on.
Thank you very much, Jyoti. Thank you, Pradeep, for inviting me. If you don't mind, let me spend a few minutes speaking about the defense relationship before I focus on the current context of the Indo-Pacific. I would like to make two substantial points which are often not recognized in our conversations on what we call the Indo-US defense relationship or defense cooperation. Since you asked for a nugget, let me begin with the nugget. There was once a delegation of US senators and congressmen who called on Dr. Manmohan Singh. And at the end of the meeting, one of them said to him, "So, Prime Minister, it's going to be 126 for 123. And everybody laughed. And the reference was, of course, to the fact that the US wanted to sell 126 F-16 or F-14, Sujit can correct me on the number, jets to India in exchange for their support for the 123 agreement. So right from the beginning, don't forget, Jyoti, you will remember very well that Condoleezza Rice's visit to India in 2005 preceded the beginning of the conversations on the nuclear deal when the Defense Cooperation Agreement was signed and Pranab Mukherjee went to Washington and met Donald Rumsfeld. So the Defense Cooperation Agreement preceded the nuclear conversation. So the relationship between selling defense equipment to India and strategic cooperation with India was there from day one. And we often forget this, that the so-called defense cooperation is about business and defense. The entire effort has been to increase American share in India's defense purchases, because till 2000, the US was hardly in this business. Almost all our purchases were from Russia, France, Israel, and other European countries. When India joined the WTO in 1991, we see from the data that there was a sharp increase in that decade, thanks to India's opening up, in the trade deficit that India enjoyed vis-a-vis the US. Suddenly the US found that India was selling more to them than they were able to sell to us. And this kind of was counterintuitive. Without WTO and trade liberalization and opening up the Indian economy would help US sell more to India, but actually it ended up with India selling more to the US. So I think around the turn of the century, the US identified defense sales as an important component that would reduce the trade deficit between India and the US. And the entire effort of the last 20 years has been to sell more to India. So so-called, BECA, COMCOSA, all these various things are essentially US government or congressional laws that enable American companies to do business with designated countries. Because the entire business is the private sector, right? Whether it's Boeing or Lockheed Martin or Pratt Whitney. Unlike in the case of Russia or the Soviet Union, the defense sector is in the private sector, but the private sector cannot do business with countries unless government gives them permission. So all these various agreements are essential. So let me make the first point I'm making is this is a business relationship. It is a business relationship that is in the garb of a strategic partnership. I think it's very, very important for Indians to understand, because right now we are under pressure to buy less from Russia, buy more from the US. They're all in the same business, France or Sweden or Israel, and we want to also be in the same business. That brings me to the second point, which is that the government of India has fundamentally changed its defense equipment manufacturing acquisitions policy by enunciating the Atmanirbharta Make in India program. If you see the speeches of Defense Minister Rajnath Singh when he was in Washington recently, or Prime Minister Narendra Modi's recent speeches. What are they saying? They're asking American companies to come and manufacture in India. I'm right now sitting in Hyderabad, which is a good example of a place where, in fact, American companies are manufacturing in India. Lockheed Martin has a base here, Boeing has a base here. So there's some manufacturing going on. But what we seek is more American investment in building India's domestic manufacturing capability so that we become a major defense producer. But when we become a major defense producer, we will not be a major defense importer. So this import relationship will actually decline with time. So I think these are the two background points I wanted to make, since this whole series is about conveying to the Indian people this nature of this. It's a business relationship. Do not confuse it with strategic partnership.
Thank you so much, Dr. Baru. As expected, it's full paisa vasool listening to you.